Oh, man. So, Shane, I didn't know we'd ever make it here. You know what I mean?
Buddy. God, where do you nap around here?
This is going to be one of the most sober episodes we've ever done. We did not have a koozie full of a cooler full of Coors under our table that we had originally planned. We thought about it. We mapped it out, but there's so much security. There's no way we're getting a cooler in here. You know what?
A bunch of Coach Eli Diet Cokes here, you know?
So, Shane, I think everybody, the entire audience wants to know what it's like covering SEC Media Days. I know you're only one day down. We got 3 more to go. But what stands out to you right away? Highlights, Cousin Shane, day one.
Well, a couple of things. Obviously, being first time downtown Atlanta, just soaking it up all this experience around the SEC, just how big it is. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the whole place. You just shut down the College Football Hall of Fame. You know,
right?
You're gonna hear clips throughout the week about super conferences and super programs. In fact, Sankey came out and said this is a super conference, you know, and it is, man. It's been unreal. Now, as far as the information coming at you 100 miles an hour, you know, it's like as soon as you start looking into one story, 2 other stories just popped up, and you get caught behind. Man, we've been playing catch up all day with all these coaches, and because they got the main room, they got the little room, they got hotel rooms, they got, you know, it's just Lane Kiffin signing freaking mustard bottles out there, you know, that became a thing. So it's been 100 miles an hour, like you said, but hell, you can say it all you want until you're actually in it. You know, I'm ready for bed, man. I mean, it's 7 o'clock. You know.
Yeah, we haven't eaten lunch. We haven't eaten dinner. I don't even know if you had a good breakfast or not. I'm
going to lose like 30 pounds down here at Media Days.
And hey, Shane, I got to be completely honest with you. I'm sorry I underestimated you. I didn't know how big of a hit you'd be down here, but we'll get to our Drinkwitz one-on-one interview here in a minute. But my goodness, the man was going through his phone, sharing it with you there after the interview. I thought you guys were going to exchange numbers and you know, leave the group thread I'm in and jump in this Mizzou
I thought
one.
I was going to grab the plane and go home with him there for a minute. We had an absolute blast with him and my boy Big Mac. You know, we were able to, you know, just soak up some Mizzou football, you know, and Eli's one of my favorite guys since he came in because he's always been he's like a wild card, you know.
Yeah.
You know, he's always, you know what I'm saying? Like we were talking with Ole Miss guy earlier, and you know, there's only a handful of coaches in the SEC that actually tell the truth, you know, that tell what they're feeling, and I feel like Eli, he tries, you know, to stay in the lanes, but man, if he's got something he wants to tell you, he does it. So he's just very authentic. And I think that's what I enjoyed with Coach is it felt like we were just talking to another buddy on the podcast.
Yeah. And speaking of first, Shane, I always hate talking about myself and making it about me and all this.
Here we go again.
But first time ever on set with Paul Feinbaum, you think, you know, you may be nervous from time to time. My heart was racing. There's bright lights in front of you. There's cameras moving in. There's a crane shot coming in. And Paul's got someone in his ear. You don't know if he's talking to you. You don't know if he's talking about the crew. They were literally screaming at me, Shane, right before we went on. Get his lanyard off. They forgot to take the lanyard off me. So I'm taking it off, and then they're saying, stop. It's stuck on the mic. So they're running up, screaming it off, and I'm just like sweating bullets up here trying to not make a damn fool of myself, which I'm sure I did. Oh, we got Kentucky coaches tweeting about me. They're up. We haven't even got to Kentucky yet.
Oh my God!
And
they done canceled this up there.
I may not. I'm scheduled to go to a vacation there next week. I'm not even giving the locations because I don't want anything bad to happen.
And I don't even know what you said. You know, so I mean, I'm sitting down here when we get up. We both walk down Feinbaum. You know, and it's a theater, man. You know, there's cameras everywhere. There's people everywhere. You don't know if you're supposed to be in a certain area. You're trying to not get everybody shot. You know, my fat ass. I didn't want to get like, oh, who is that? You know, so you were getting all cleared up, but I couldn't hear you. You're so far away. But then all of a sudden, Twitter's blowing up. You know, and like you said, Coach up there in Kentucky, man, he is not a fan of SEC.
He's not going to be on the pod anytime soon. You know what?
But you know. put up or shut up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think, you've said your piece. It's not like the first time you've ever talked about Kentucky football. It's not the first time you've gave your thoughts on Will Levis. This is just, it's one of those that why can't you disagree? I think Kentucky's going to be better than you are. And
I'm not sitting here saying they're going to win 3 games.
Right.
I'm going to say 7, 8, or 9. But that may be good for 4th or 5th in the East.
Optimistic, talking Kentucky football, and I was looking at 10, 11 wins, It's not that we don't think Kentucky will be good. It's just you don't think they'll be as good as some other folks. So,
and hell, when I make a prediction like this, I'm wrong about 60% of the time. So Kentucky fans, you should be cheering me right now.
You should be pin marking this. So if something comes up later and you're sitting at a 10, 11 game winning season, you can just drag Mike's ass through the dirt, But
that old takes exposed. Yeah. He's got me pinned up for sure. That guy.
We got 14 teams, Mike. They can't all win. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's what we are. We're talking heads. This is why we come to SEC Media Days, to get things fired up, to get the season rolling. It's about rivalries. Yeah. It's about competition. And Will's going to have plenty of opportunities to show the country that he is a first-round draft pick. But there's still a chance that we're sitting at the end of the season saying, well, Mike was right. Won't be any retweets then.
Well, let's move on from Kentucky, Shane. We'll
yeah.
have Kentucky Day for sure. But let's kick things off with Greg Sankey, who he kicked things off down here from the main podium. Highlights from his discussion, NIL talk, how the division breakdown, the scheduling, how all that's going to break down. Let's kick it over to the highlights from Greg Sankey there.
Greg, do you anticipate maybe Texas and Oklahoma coming in the league early ahead of time?
That's not up to me. That's about the relationship between Oklahoma, Texas, and the Big 12. We are focused on the addition being effective July 1st, 2025.
You mentioned one of the bigger issues with that single division model was the tiebreakers and figuring out that stuff. What are some of the other issues when y'all think about finalizing that single division format?
John, you didn't even have to introduce yourself because I was in Omaha and heard you ask a question in those press conferences leading up to the Ole Miss National Championship. So welcome to Atlanta. The list of issues, so tiebreakers one, the number of games and what that means from a scheduling standpoint, the imbalance around 9 games versus the comfort with 8 games. What happens with non-conference schedules, and we have a requirement that 9th game right now be among an Autonomy 5 type opponent. How do we dispose of or maintain that particular policy? The impact on bowl eligibility and college football playoff access I mentioned. When I go through 6 different teams having won national championships in the last 25 years or so, no one comes close to that number. So the level of competition here, while people want to be a part of it, we're attentive and sensitive to that. Just to be clear, nobody from TV is saying do this or do that. This is a conversation and a decision to be made among our conference membership.
Greg, do you sense a lot of support for a model with 3 permanent rivals, or anywhere close to a consensus on that? And is there any interest in expanding beyond 16 teams right now?
The first question is it's under consideration, Kirk, and there are limits on the number of options available for 3 permanent opponents based upon the number of games. 9 makes that more practical. If you remember, I had 2 points when we expanded that I wanted to be front and center. One is that we engage in blue sky thinking, just let's look at the big picture. And the second is we rotate our teams through campus as frequently as possible so we don't go 12 years between visits. And so those 2 have guided us. That last one relates to the number of games, number of permanent opponents, and how many times you can move people through cleanly. And that's exactly the point of conversation. Embedded in my remarks is we're attentive, we're engaged in conversation. The great news for the Southeastern Conference is that people call and say, hey, you're doing something really special, and they kind of hint around the edges. As I went through, we know who we are. We're confident in our success. We're really looking forward to the expansion and being at 16 teams, and don't feel pressure to just operate at a number. But we'll watch what happens around us and be thoughtful but be nimble.
Super conference. I mean, that was the biggest takeaway there from old Sankey. You know what? And I think he's talking before even Texas and Oklahoma get into the fold.
Yeah.
So, not a ton of big revelations from Sankey, but it is, you can kind of sense the bravado, from the most powerful man in college football.
Yeah, he brought the big swinging SEC in, didn't he? No, this was it was to the point. It covered every topic we knew he would cover in the way the SEC commissioner would. But like you said, there was a little cockiness to him up there at the stand, and I think that's important because, people copy us. They don't tell the SEC what to do, and that's kind of what I got from Sankey was like, hey, listen, we may expand, we may not, but when we do it, we're going to do it the right way. We're not going to get pushed into anything because we're the SEC. So I kind of just love the attitude that he brought to the stage. Yeah. Now, next up, Missouri. We got to go Missouri because we had Coach on the show. We had Isaiah McGuire on the show. Shane, you knocked it out of the park. But this is a team that last offseason, again, everyone was high on, fell short. But still, many of those pieces are still there. And, hell, they just signed the best recruiting class in program history. You look at their schedule, there is tricky games, Kansas State, Auburn. I think a lot of casual fans say, well, those are losses. But if they win those games, and they are very, very winnable, Missouri is going to be a surprise out of the East. That's what we've been talking about, one of the sleepers, and that's what nobody came here to talk Mizzou football. And, but Mizzou's got one of those programs that can just derail a lot of programs. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there could be some games that we watch and we're like, damn, we didn't realize Mizzou. I mean, look what they got on the outside. I mean, you talk about it in every meeting that we talk about, that not only they got loaded receivers, but then they got a running back room, that if you look at what Eli's done with running backs, you got Roundtree, you got what's his name last year? Tyler Beatty. Even over at App State, he's put talent into the NFL, and we're going to continue to see that. I can't imagine that you didn't have a transfer come in for no reason. He's going. Right. It's just going to be a fun, exciting offense, and Eli does the best that he can with that offense. A lot of question marks at quarterback, which you're going to hear me ask right out of the gate. But I just like the direction. I think a lot of people sleeping on the Mizzou Tigers. Well, let's kick it over to that one-on-one interview, Shane. Let's just play the whole video. It's a short one. Us interviewing Coach Drink, and we literally had the best setting there at SEC Media Days. If you're watching, you can see the Ferris wheel in the background and everything like that. My fat ass, you look good enough there. You noticed I started going back and forth. He started going back and forth. That was my fault, guys. Sorry about that. He was mimicking me there.
Yep, gotcha.
Okay, there you are. Yes, sir. Sorry about that. So, hey, Media Days. Did you bring the lightsaber?
No, I didn't bring any lightsabers with me, man.
Hey, no. I'm sorry. I had to go with that. But
you're good.
I did want to ask you, that game, Florida, going for two, making the tough call at the end of the game. Obviously, you score the 2-point conversion, you win the game, you're a hero. But if you don't, everyone calls you an idiot. That's the way it is, being an SEC head coach. So what gives you the confidence to go for that? I mean, it just uber confidence that your team can execute that?
Well, it was a decision rooted in something that we had discussed throughout the summer. Honestly, it was one of those things that leading up to that, with the new overtime rule changes, if you get the ball second to start overtime, the very next time you get the ball, go again, and you have to go for two. Right. And so, for me, it was an opportunity to win the game, call your best 2-point play, something you feel good about, something that you practice, and we executed it. I really don't make decisions based off of what I think other people are going to say about me. Regardless of my takes, whatever I say on here, there's going to be a certain group of people that don't like what I say because they're fans of other teams or they have a preconceived notion of who I am or whatnot. And so I'm okay with that. I know who I am. I'm confident in what we're trying to do and lay my head on the pillow at night, regardless.
Simple question. Who's your quarterback? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I know you're going to. No, I do want to ask. One thing, when you came in, you talked about locking down the borders, recruiting the state.
Yeah.
And you've been doing a great job on that. But I want to ask you about one instance. when you were at Raytown High School on January 14th, you rolled in with a dump truck.
Yeah.
So I want to know the thought process. Was that your idea, or were you sitting in there and saying, let's do this, let's try something different?
Man, I think when you're a brand like Missouri and you're trying to reinvent yourself, you have to be creative and you have to try things that are going to set you apart from everybody else. And again, being in-state, having the connections that we had, we were able to utilize Martin Rucker, a former great player who now owns a construction company, and able to utilize his dump truck and resources, and hopefully made the right impression.
Oh, it was great. It was great.
Now, we've seen you on the sidelines of the basketball games and stuff going wild and crazy. Have you ever seen that? There's video, there's images of Bruce Pearl when he was at Tennessee, shirt off, painted up. What's it going to take for Coach Drinkwitz at a Missouri basketball game with his shirt off, painted Mizzou?
Man, I tell you what, I was this close to doing it when we played Auburn at home this year in #1, but I don't want it to be about me.
Yeah.
And that was really the ultimate decision making. Was like it needs to be about our Mizzou basketball team, and they know I'm there and cheering for them and rooting for them. But it's not really about me; it's about them and knowing that they have my support. And so that's kind of the reason I didn't do it. So that's kind of the guiding principle. Is I don't want it to ever be. I want to utilize my influence in a positive way, but I don't want it to be where it's about me instead of about the student athletes or about the university.
Mm. I want to ask you about Arkansas, because every time we send a tweet out about Arkansas, or I'm sorry, Mizzou, there's 20 comments from Arkansas fans. That
absolutely.
rivalry is getting bigger and bigger every year.
Isn't that a good thing?
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I wanted to follow up because you're from there.
Mm-hmm.
You played there. You know, you went to school there.
Yeah.
What does that rivalry mean to you?
Still a member of the Arkansas Teacher Retirement Association. Both me and my wife are, just in case college football don't work out. We can go back. Hopefully somebody would hire me back in the state. Hopefully I still have enough relationships.
That's right. Didn't burn too many bridges, did you?
Yeah. I mean, that's fandom, right?
Yeah.
And believe me, I know there's a lot of people that don't like me. They made sure to tell me about it when I was in the stadium last year too. But you know what? That's always going to be home. That's a special place. But we have to have a rivalry, right? And you got to create it somehow.
Yeah.
And you can't create it by sitting there and telling everybody how good they are and all that. You got to try to stoke a little fire. And
I love it.
It's not personal. I think Sam has done a great job, and obviously whipped our butt last year and made us like it. And
Absolutely.
so as a team, we've got to respond to that. It's exciting. So it doesn't bother me. I know there's a lot of fans that that don't like me, and that's okay.
Oh, that's all right.
That's all right.
Last thing I got for you, Coach, Luther Burden. That's a kid everybody in the country wanted. He stays home, goes to Mizzou. What's that mean for your program? And what's the expectations for him his first year?
Well, for us, it just meant that people are believing in what we're selling, and we got to do a great job of coming through with all the things that we said that we were going to be able to do for him, both while he's here playing for us and afterwards, being able to make sure that he's got an opportunity to be successful in the rest of his life. I've tried not to put undue expectations or pressure on him, but he is a great player with a unique skill set and a great competitive spirit and heart, and look forward to him being the best version of himself, and whatever that is for our football team will be it will be an improvement.
Last question I've got.
Okay.
You've got a house full of women. Well, I think you got 15 daughters now.
Yeah. I'm not Catholic or LDS. So I only got 4 daughters. Okay, and that's okay.
Well, I've come from a house full of women myself.
Okay,
that's
good.
Why I have no hair. But I am curious. Your escape. Some people talk about a man space. Some people do a hobby. We created a SEC podcast. So
that's a great idea.
I'm just curious. What do you do to kind of relax, particularly in the off season?
Coach football. That's
my
escape. No, I mean I go back to the office.
Yeah.
We'll go on vacation. We like to be around the water. We went down to Table Rock Lake for a week.
That's good.
Then been down to the beach. My wife loves going to the beach, and so we do things like that. But I don't really have a hobby in my office and in my basement. I have a guitar, and so if I've got to get away from the girls in my own house, then I'll go downstairs. And the other night I was playing the electric guitar for a while, for 45 minutes. My wife was like, "Are you done with your concert?" So I'm trying to learn a new Eric Church song, so I was working on that.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Best of luck this season.
Appreciate y'all. Yep.
Good luck this season.
Thank you, man.
So, Shane, I mean, did you ever in your wildest dreams think that we'd be sitting here and talking with an SEC football coach on a podcast?
No, man. I thought we gave this up like 3 years ago. I was just doing it to be, because you're family. But no, it's so funny because I think that was the surreal moment. When we're sitting there, we set all this stuff up, and it's a little distance from the elevator. It's kind of hard to explain, but a lot of walking today. Nobody told me that. I didn't get that on my badge, but there was a lot of walking around hot Atlanta here. But it was just sitting there waiting, and it's like, man, we're waiting for one of 14 head coaches of the SEC. It's like, man, if my papa was here right now, you know what I'm saying? He wouldn't believe it if I told him, So, no, it was Mizzou. It wasn't a team I grew up watching, but it's a team I fell in love with. It's a coach. It's the SEC, man. You hear Kelly talking about it. It's food, it's family, it's friends, it's fellowship and football. That's what the South is all about, and it's just like, man, it was apex for me.
And I got to commend you again. The research, my goodness, where these coaches were in middle school, their dads, their parents.
I don't know if we put it on we were talking Big Mac here. I did a lot of, I was looking for something, a little nugget, maybe with history, an old family photo or something like that I could bring up. And I fell in love with the story. It's like so many times you pull individuals and you talk about their numbers and their stats, but, each one of these guys have got a story on why they got there, and Eli, he's the author, he's making this book work. So, no, I don't even know where you were going with it. I'm like, I've had like 18 Diet Cokes, I'm like John Daly up here.
That's another thing you guys got in common.
He's trying to quit, I can't find enough, I just need caffeine to keep rolling, so.
All right, wait, next up, Lane Kiffin, of course. Yeah. I mean, anytime he rolls through this event, the cameras are coming, the quotes are coming. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but my God, did he continue to hammer home the NIL and the legalized cheating, as he calls it?
I mean, is he wrong? This,
Well, that's what I was trying to get to with Brad.
Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth because they're, from what I understand and what's being widely reported, they are paying people, I'm sure they're doing it legally, once they transfer in and all that. But let's not kid ourselves. That's the same deal. I mean, I'm sure they're telling them how much money is on the table if they come to Ole Miss via the transfer portal.
The thing I don't like about it is what the stories we're not getting yet. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. There's a lot of people, when there's money involved, there's slimy people that get involved, and there's a real dark side to this NIL, and that's what concerns me the most is not so much that we're paying players. We've been doing that forever. You know what I'm saying? To act like we're not paying players, the jokes about the Chargers down there and Tuscaloosa, it's like we know it's happening, but the NIL, there's just a lot of kids are going to get hurt. A lot of families are going to get hurt if we don't have some sort of control, and I'm worried about that, kind of like what Lane talks about here. It's like we've got to have rules, but you don't want too many rules. It's like, where's this gray? Where does it meet? Is there a salary cap? I thought that was a unique idea, but that's still going to get manipulated. I mean, talk about the king of manipulation. We just had a vote on fake injuries, and it got, we're going to see a lot more of it from Ole Miss this year to slow down a tempo that he runs. It's we make rules, and then it's like the old saying, like I have family in law enforcement, and as soon as they come out with a radar gun, they come out with a radar detector that can detect that gun quicker. It's like they're just going back and forth, and that's kind of what I see with the NIL.
Yeah. So, hey, we also had Michael Katz, DJ Journal. We had Brad Logan, 24/7 Sports. Both cover Ole Miss. So let's kick over to some of the highlights of their conversation.
Lane Kiffin had a lot to say, and I had a chance to visit with some more beat writers that cover Ole Miss, and he said a lot more in regards to NIL than I expected him to.
Right.
He had a lot to say about the future of college athletics, and quite frankly, he said, I'm not making this up, he said it was a legalized cheating.
Yeah.
That's right or wrong, that's what he said.
Absolutely.
And that's strong.
Yeah.
So where are we as a collective body of college football when a sitting head coach calls it collective cheating or calls it what am I trying to say? What did I say? It would calls it essentially cheating and legalized cheating, and then you've got that. And he basically said that the NIL was a mess because it was not legislated correctly. He used the word salary cap in regards to NIL about how much a program can put into its NIL budget.
Right.
And he basically called it, with salary cap, it's pay for play. It's
right.
Now let me ask
I don't
you
know.
this,
I guess
though,
it just took me by surprise. He went so deep into it.
Let me ask you this, because I've even heard your colleague David Johnson over there,
Right.
24/7 Sports. I mean, he's laid it out. Ole Miss. And he specifically referenced Jackson Dart, a guy they added via the transfer portal, of course. Now, he's got a huge NIL deal at Ole Miss.
He does.
So I'm a little confused how Kiffin can say that, which I know it's not – it is the rule. You cannot entice people with NIL via the high school ranks.
Right.
But can you do it via the JUCO ranks, or are they just –
No, I don't think from the best of my ability or the best of my knowledge, you cannot induce players to come to campus and play for you via the NIL. The NIL is only a structure that is in place for sitting players.
Right.
So, obviously, there's something obviously in place for Jackson Dart. The question is when was that put into place? You have to make the assumption that was put into place following his signature.
Oh, I'm sure it was, but he's not played it down at Ole Miss.
Right.
So
it was following his sign. When he signed with Ole Miss, he immediately became a student athlete for
Right.
Ole Miss. So that NIL.
To me, that feels like you're kind of talking out both sides of your mouth, because I'm not saying they did anything illegal,
Right.
but I'm saying what is truly his NIL value if he's never played for the school? That certainly feels like again, I'm not saying they recruited
Right.
him, but I don't know.
Do you think this was a call to the boosters?
I think that's what every one of these coaches that call it out.
Like everyone else is paying more. Why aren't we?
I think so. But
Yeah.
also, I mean, it's written into the rule. It's illegal for the high school. You cannot recruit high school players with NIL. So that's a sticking point because we know it's going on.
Yeah.
It's certainly not going on at Ole Miss, but it's going on at other schools, and it's hurting teams like Ole Miss.
What about the back end, though? These collective agreements, that they're getting these
Lane
guys.
Lane said it.
I know. That's one of the things, one of the comments he brought up. He's like, doesn't mean they're going to play.
Yeah.
You know?
If there is a package in place, an NIL package for a student athlete on campus, and he happens to be really good at shooting basketball or catching the football, and let's just say that this person in whatever collective that they're in, and they give a substantial amount of money
Right.
for this particular NIL package for this player, who's to say that they don't go to the coach and say, hey, I put this amount of money into this collective.
Right.
Why is he not playing?
Yeah.
And I think, that's something, once again, we've got to tackle going down the road. I think Lane Kiffin, out of everything he said today, and like I said, he said a lot. He said a lot that people are going to be dissecting for a while. But the main thing that stuck out to me is he essentially said, this thing is broken.
Right.
And it is out of control.
Yeah.
And until a governing body, he didn't even say the NCAA. I don't even know that Greg Sankey said the NCAA today.
Right.
But until someone gets a hold of this, that it's a free-for-all. And I'm interested to see where it goes from here.
What are your thoughts? I mean, if you were, I don't know, take a step back and to govern the NIL, I mean, what would be the first thing? The salary cap's interesting. I've not heard that approach, but is that even possible?
I think so. You put a dollar amount on each program, each scholastic program that you have.
Right.
Olympic sports, everything. There is a cap on what so you can legislate it.
Right.
And it's documented what the NIL package is for your sitting student athletes, not inducements for the freshmen, the JUCOs, the transfers.
And if that were to get in place, though, I mean,
Then we're back to the bagmen under the table.
Well, that and the NCAA.
Maybe you're hoping it's not as bad.
Well, and if we have a salary cap, what's to keep another school from a different conference? We're offering more up here.
Right.
I mean, this.
And that may be why Sankey is trying to stay away from that, because
Right.
all of a sudden, if you put a salary cap of $150,000 or $200,000 per team, which
the
obviously
NCAA's
probably more,
back involved.
the NCAA's involved,
Yeah.
and then you've got, okay, so we're the Big Ten. We're going to give each team $500,000. So we're
Right.
going to up, and then the SEC says, no, then we're going to go to $1 million per football team. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So at some point, someone's got to step in, and I don't know that anybody has enough trust in the NCAA to make that decision or to legislate it.
Lane clearly came here with a message, and he said it on every platform. And like you said, the clips, he does not like the NIL. And I'm wondering if that's more with his boosters. He's afraid to get behind the 8 ball there, or is this something?
Well, let's put it on the table.
Yeah.
We heard we know that the Texas A&M has a heck of a collective.
Correct.
And they've done a fantastic job organizing and making sure those NIL packages are in place. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that Texas A&M tried to induce players to come to play for them.
Right.
I'll allow that for speculation for our podcast listeners.
Right.
But let's just say they've done a great job with their collective. Then Jimbo comes out and goes absolutely ballistic because of what Nick Saban said.
Right.
So what's true here?
Yeah.
Is Jimbo telling the truth, or is he covering himself? Lane Kiffin has pretty much come out and said, we're going to recruit the transfer portal.
Right.
Yeah.
And the NIL structure that Ole Miss has in place with the Grow Collective is a pretty good collective.
Correct.
But it's nothing at what Texas A&M is doing in regards to finances, nor I don't think it probably is as good as what Alabama has. So it's definitely something that's
Right.
going to have to be monitored because
Yeah.
it is a wild, wild west right now.
Last time you were on the show, you talked up this Michael Trigg, and my God, did he look like a beast in the spring game? That was the reports all spring. He's going to be probably the number one option, even though he's a tight end. But what about Jackson Dart? Because it seems like it's kind of up in the air whether he's going to be the starting quarterback. What are you hearing?
First of all, as a USC graduate myself, let me tell you, I'm a huge Big Ten fan. I've always been, that USC, Maryland, or Purdue game is just what I get up for in the morning. But that's another story. But with Dart, it's interesting because I think we all thought when you bring in a guy like Jackson Dart, he's going to win the job, right? He's a 5-star everything. He's everything you look for in a Lane Kiffin offense at quarterback. But and I think coaches do coach things, and they're leaving it open. And neither guy looked great in the spring, Luke Altmaier or Dart. And it's hard to blame Dart for he's been there for 2 months to get all that down with all these new receivers and all that kind of stuff. I know it's a quarterback competition, and Altmaier could win the job, right? But I've always kind of been on the side of if you bring in Jackson Dart, you don't bring him in to ride the bench.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately, one way or another, I think he's going to thrive. I think he's perfect for the offense. He does a lot of the things Matt Corral did. It's hard to compare someone to what Matt did, but the elusiveness, the arm, the escapability, just sort of that dynamic. They were both gunslingers early in their career. Jackson Dart makes some throws where you're like, what was that? And then he'll make one that's amazing. Matt did that early in his career too, and Lane was really good at kind of getting that out of Matt and having him, maybe not force the issue. I see a lot of similarities in that regard. Michael Trigg, spring game, I think he cut 3 touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions or something. It was just ridiculous.
Mike is in love with this guy.
Oh, no.
He's crowned him.
I as a USC fan, I was really bummed when he left because I thought this is the guy. This is the future. Yeah. This is the tight end of. This is what it's supposed to be, right now in football. I remember we walked out there for spring practice and we saw him and we were like, this guy just looks different. You know what I mean? I think Lane kind of said something to the effect of it's like when you go out and everyone else looks like they're on JV and he's like the varsity guy, or he's the pro ball or pro ball player playing against Pop Warner kids. Right. He just looks different, and he's dynamic. I think he's going to be really fun to watch, and he's obviously got some work to do in terms of blocking. I don't think USC really. In that air raid offense, I don't think he really did that much. And they do have Casey Kelly, who is more of the conventional kind of tight end. But man, a guy that dynamic, you got to get him the ball.
Right.
And anybody interested? Hey, we got the full clips on our YouTube page with Brad, with Michael. I don't want this to be a 4-hour podcast. You know what I mean? We got so many comments and everything going on.
Let's not fool ourselves. Lane Kiffin was a story today. NIL was a story. The transfer portal was a story. And it's going to continue. The fact that we got it out right here on day 1, by day 4, we're going to be sick of those 3 letters. You know what I'm saying? But, he made some interesting comments, and I think people are going to start taking notice in that. And, I saw him on Paul Feinbaum. I've seen him out here. He came here.
Signing mustard bottles.
Don't get me wrong. He came here with an agenda, and he got it out, man.
Yeah.
Whether it changes anything, I don't know, you know.
Just wondering your philosophy on calling trick plays when you do them, and what do you remember about Nick Saban and his philosophy on that?
Well, like Kirby Smart used to say, sometimes you come up here and just end up talking about Alabama. So our first question somehow is about Nick Saban. So that's pretty usual. Trick plays, I don't know. I think kind of offense has evolved so much from where we used to be that in a way maybe you don't run as many because you know we're not quite the same as we used to be as far as setting things up as much because so much is about tempo and how we do things. So I would guess, you know, analytics on trick plays would show maybe we don't do as many as we used to. And coach kind of was with trick plays, kind of like, you know, fake kicks. Like it had to be a discussion a lot of times right before. He would want to know that week what was in and why, and a lot of times you'd, you know, run it by him before. So, and if they worked, he was happy. If they didn't work, you got to ask Chewings.
You mentioned right off the top the importance of the transfer portal and filling some holes on your roster this year. I'm wondering in the last year, what changes have you seen in your discussions with potential transfers of the NIL, and what do you think the coach's role should be in that whole discussion?
Well, what should the coach's role be in that discussion? I mean, I think ideally, if we're going to be in an NIL world and somehow you're going to do it right and it's going to get capped, you know, so that there's some way of controlling it and keeping playing fields close to the same. Otherwise, you're just going to have these glaring differences within Division I football based off of their, what I've said before, their salary cap. I know that's not really the right word. And ideally, I would think that the coach should be part of managing that. That's, you know, how you would want it done, but I don't know if it'll be that way or whatever. So that's just how I would do, and that's based off of look what happens in professional sports. There's salary caps, and the coach and the general manager / owner manage that.
Coach, we're going to go right in front of me.
Because the other thing about that too is if it's not, I would say, okay, well, why would you put it that way when coaches aren't supposed to be involved in that? Well, you got a whole other set of problems. If you got boosters out there deciding who they're going to pay to come play, and the coach isn't involved in it, how's that work? I mean, they could just go pick who they want and pay them however much, and then are they going to tell you, the booster's going to tell you who to play to? And then when they don't play, how's that going to work out? So, again, this was not thought out at all, in my opinion, and has created a massive set of issues, which I think when people really thought about it, from a coach's standpoint, could have predicted this was going to happen.
All right. Well,
Joe Goodman, AL.com. 1 year into NIL, what have you found works with NIL? What doesn't work? And, you know, you say college football is all about money right now. So how have you managed that in your program? You know, you mentioned maybe there needs to be general managers, but have you kind of delegated that responsibility to someone already, or how have you gone about dealing with that?
Well, the first question is the keys to NIL and how do you do well at that? You have really good boosters. That's how you do well at it. So I'll say what other people don't say, as you know. So it's like a payroll, you know, in baseball. What teams win over a long period of time? Teams that have high payrolls and can pay players a lot. So we're in a situation not any different than that, which is what I'm not saying I didn't. I'm sure other people said it. I said it day one. You legalize cheating, and so get ready for the people that have the most money to get the best players. And now you have it. So it is what it is. And as far as a general manager to manage that, we aren't allowed in the current system to manage what they make. So so there isn't. Well, we're not there yet, and I don't know that we ever will be. That's just what I said it should be, because that's what any other, you know, professional sports, which is what we are now, does.
Excuse my tie. Apologies for that. Lane, I saw that you signed a mustard bottle earlier. Have you signed a lot of those in the last 9 months?
I did sign a mustard bottle. That was the first guy to come up, which I think he had Alabama shirt on, so I was a little confused there. And so, yes, I've signed a lot of mustard balls and golf balls, which normally I haven't. So it's been a unique off season.
Okay, we're going to stay over in that.
And I'd like to say on the golf ball, which goes back to the first pitch, which I threw out for the Tennessee game, and we got swept by Tennessee and didn't play well, and everybody thought it was my fault. I had a plan. I wanted our guys to stay humble and not play very well, and then we'd go win the national championship in baseball. So I'd like to say that was a plan. So all the Tennessee fans that were all excited about sweeping us, there was a plan.
Last but certainly not least, Brian Kelly, his first appearance at SEC Media Days. I thought, based on what we saw, I thought he aced it, Shane. I mean, talk about culture issues. I love the fact that he points out, hell, you win football games down here. That stuff doesn't matter. And I think the perfect example is their previous coach. I mean, LSU was never going to have a better fit than Coach O, yet they ran his ass out after a couple bad years. So that's what it's all about. You win, people will embrace your culture, and they'll say you got a great culture. You don't get it done, you fall apart. And I thought it was also interesting, I don't know if you caught this, Shane, but he was asked about the Arkansas transfers that he got in, helping boost their secondary, and he said, hell, I'm not even comfortable really with seeing that division players jump within the division. But that's the rules. LSU's going to take advantage because they got a weakness, can hurt an opponent they're going to see annually. So I don't know, what was your highlights of what Brian Kelly had to say?
Oh, well, I mean, a lot of coach speak. Here's a guy that's been around college football a long time. We talk Eli, a little bit open. These younger guys, it's a generational thing. The under 40 guys, I don't know how old Lane is, but he ain't too far from it. But these old guys, with the ties on, doing the right thing, saying the right things, that's what I think we got a lot of today. But he did it. He did good. I didn't come away with like a higher expectations of LSU, but I will say this: the players that he brought with him, I think they said more about that program than he did. Those kids, I never saw. I saw more excitement from that LSU group, and I don't know if that is a culture thing that you're talking about or a locker room thing, but here on Media Road, there's 50 tables, and no one had more fun than LSU players today.
And we were surrounded by LSU. Maybe that's why a lot of the media right around here.
It's been kind of documented, maybe LSU or the collective of NIL of LSU doesn't have as much funds as other schools. How do you overcome that? And have you run into a situation yet where maybe you were outbid for a player? And how do you overcome that?
First of all, I don't know that we don't have as many funds. Nobody has given me, any kind of documentation that we're behind. I feel very comfortable, quite honestly, as I stand here, talking to you, that, what we're doing relative to NIL is as competitive as anybody else. I don't feel like we're being outbid by anybody. I don't think that's the place of NIL anyway. So if we were being outbid, then we're going to be outbid if we have $50 million in our collective. So I don't feel hamstrung by that. I want to continue to educate with NIL. I want to be able to use the resources wisely to help promote name, image, and likeness, and have that available for our student athletes when the time comes.
I wanted to ask you about your secondary, what you feel about the talent level there, and the two transfers from Arkansas, Fouché and Brooks, how you feel like they might fit in.
Well, let me address Fouché and Brooks. They have been outstanding additions to our program. I know many don't like to see that happen within the league, and I'm not crazy about it either. But these are two Louisiana kids that wanted to play at LSU, and they have been great additions. Character, I would say that, when we were looking into the transfer portal, we wanted young men that had SEC experience and had ties to the state of Louisiana. And Brooks and Fouché fit that to the T. And I think the secondary has a number of players that I think went out and recruited either through the portal or that were in the program that give us great depth, but they're going to have to go out and prove it. And I think that's an area that is going to have to come together for us, but we think we have depth and we think we have some talent there.
Coach, I wonder why you feel like you're a great fit for LSU since you haven't been in the South that much. And corollary question is that what do you think of Texas and Oklahoma joining an already great conference?
Well, I think fit is about, the ability to run a program, at the highest level. I've done it for 32 years. I've had success at Notre Dame, Cincinnati, Central Michigan, wherever I've been. So, running a program and then, developing players, player development. I think those are the most important thing. And I don't think that needs to be, geographical in a sense. I've gotten to love where I'm at in Baton Rouge. I love the people. They love football. They love family. And they love food. And that fits me really well. So I guess I should have been in the South all along. I love the fact that Oklahoma and Texas, two great programs, are coming into the SEC. And, that speaks to Coach Sankey and understanding, the lay of the land and being proactive and having two great institutions coming into the SEC. We'll be excited about when they officially join to have them on the schedule as well.
But I did think you have an interesting idea. The closing thoughts here, when we were messing around waiting for, I think, drink, we threw some ideas around. But if you had questions for Brian Kelly, for Lane Kiffin, maybe even Drinkwitz that you didn't get to, do you have any on mind? And maybe you want me to go first here.
Well, I kind of talked about Mizzou. I wanted to get a little feel of the running back situation because Eli has, like I said, shown a track record of putting these guys in the NFL. So I'm just kind of curious what the next chapter of that's going to look like. The problem is the questions I really want to know the answer to, they're not going to answer. You know what I'm saying? The questions I really want to ask, I'm not allowed to say it or ask it.
Right.
So, I don't know.
And that, speaking of that one thing, again, I favor NIL. I like the players getting paid because I think there's so much money involved. It's basically criminal to basically say you cannot, get $50 at, Bryce Young winning the Heisman. He's worth an insane amount of money to Alabama. But I thought it was hilarious. Brian Kelly was asked about, their NIL and whether they have enough money. And he's sitting there saying, we got all the money in the world. And then you got Kiffin with all his comments. It's like it's such a weird and wild time to be involved in college football where this is out in the open and being debated in a scene like this, whereas years ago they would have never even touched something like that.
One of the things – Brian Kelly, one of the worst questions asked today, in my opinion, and no offense to who asked it, but they were talking about getting blown out when he was at Notre Dame. Is that part of the reason that he came down here to LSU? I didn't like the question, but then the more I thought about it, I was like, I would love to know the answer to that. Is that why you're here? I mean, I would imagine that you left Notre Dame to come here to win national championships.
Right.
Because you don't just come in. He knew what he had on the roster. He knew the things he's got to work. I mean, Butte, he was up against the ropes. Now we're giving him the number 7, I mean, he's winning that locker room over, and it starts from the inside out. But that locker room is loaded with talent. I just want to know, coming in, how soon are you expecting to win national championships here? Not on the fan base. How soon? Because everywhere he's been productive, very productive. One of the elite coaches in the country, and just his honest expectations on how soon he's winning championships at LSU.
And why we brought that up, because I really wanted to ask Sankey. I was trying to get a question in. We know this expansion and all this. This is all money driven. TV networks trying to scoop up best markets, trying to renegotiate their television contracts because that's where all the money is. Hey, the SEC is going to be fine. I'm not worried about the SEC. But I'm curious if he would truthfully answer, is that good for college football?
How can you answer that, Mike? I think, this is one of those – you think about the evolution of internet You know, when we were kids, well, maybe when I was a kid, you know, like I knew one kid that had a computer and could log in and do anything online, you know. But from that point to this point, I mean, this is the fastest thing. I mean, it's on the phone. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah.
I think college football is excelling quicker now these days than it ever has. When you look at think about where we were 10 years ago, man. There was no talk about giving players money. You know, here we are. There was no talk about a free agency. Oh, here's the transfer portal. You know, it's like, it's just, look how much it's changed in the last 10 years. I can't imagine what it's going to look like 10 years from now. I mean, we may have general managers of college football teams. You know?
Yeah. It's wild to think about, but
it's the NFL.
And that's, the SEC's in the best position because they've got the strongest grasp on all that. Super League, as Greg Sankey says, I think that's the perfect way to end this one, Shane. Day one, SEC Media Days in the books. Fantastic day.
Absolutely. I'm ready for some food and then go to bed.